2 words, Revo Fitness. Here's a few more. Simple, 24/7, reformer Pilates, body scanners, massage chairs, squat racks, free weights, pin and plate loaded equipment, no lock-in contracts, no bullshit. All of that and more from just $9.69 a week. That's surprisingly affordable. Join now at Revo Fitness Blair Athol or download the Revo Fitness app. RevoFitness.com.au or find the Revo Fitness app in the App Store.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sugar Mama's Fireplay. I am your host, financial planner, Canna Campbell, and today this is a Start Here series episode. Now, if you're not familiar with this Start Here episode or mini-series that I've got in Fireplay, this is all about you. That is all about your financial questions, your financial challenges, and your financial goals. This is a safe place where you can actually DM me and get honest, practical, general advice to help you make and take the first and most important steps in building financial clarity and confidence in your life. So here's how it works. You send me a DM on Instagram at SugarMamaTV or even at Canna Campbell Official. Share with me what you're stressed about or what you're trying to make a decision around or what are your setbacks and challenges are in your life. And through these episodes, Start Here, I will try and give you back the best advice, that is general advice and guidance to help you get started. This will never be personal advice. It's never product advice, strategic advice, or investment advice. However, after listening to my answer, you will definitely be filled with inspiration, be empowered to start making some decisions that are best for you, but more importantly, you'll be more educated as to what might be in better alignment for your financial well-being. So after listening to each episode, you can actually think critically and take the necessary and very important actions today. Now, of course, I am always going to recommend that you get personal advice from a financial planner before you make any major decisions. However, this mini-series Start Here is a great place to help you get going in the meantime. So I am absolutely thrilled and honored to hear that you guys love this mini-series because it is here to stay. So please make sure you keep sending me your questions and I will come back to you as quickly as possible. All right, let us begin with this decision as to whether to buy a sister-in-law's property or not. Okay, so as I mentioned, today's episode is helping someone work out whether they should be buying an investment property off their sister-in-law. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be sharing the names of people who send me these DMs for obvious confidentiality reasons, but let me give you a bit of a background to the DM that I received. Hi, Canna. I know you can't give financial advice, but instead offer general advice only. So here we go. What is considered to be a good rental yield in Melbourne? You see, my sister-in-law is selling her unit for approximately $1 million in southeast Melbourne with a rental yield of just over 3% per annum. We need to make a decision as soon as possible about whether to purchase this or not. We're in a fortunate enough position to be able to cover the gap in the mortgage repayment and rental income. We already own some shares, and if we don't end up buying this property, we will most likely end up buying more shares. The property has some sentimental value, and we're hoping to eventually be able to house my mum, who doesn't have the financial stability that we would like. The decision fatigue. I don't actually know what I want to do. Can you please help me to get me started in thinking about what is right for me and what to do? Much love and thanks. Okay, so there are so many things to be considered here. And this is what I wanted to do because I'm not here to tell you whether you should buy this property or not. That's not my motivation here whatsoever. My motivation is to help you make a great decision either way. So, these are the things I'm going to recommend that you or anyone else that is stuck making a decision, a big financial decision in their life right now. My first advice is common sense, and that is to take a deep breath and slow down. You should never rush a major financial decision, particularly a big investment like property. You do not want any regrets. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make a decision. It just means you need to press pause on everything in your life and slow down and carefully consider absolutely everything. And the things that you need to consider, we'll talk about right now. So please don't rush. And I have to say, if you make a mistake and you buy this with regret, you've also got to consider the cost to your financial well-being. So never be pressured into making a decision. If it's meant to be, it will be. So this is what I recommend you do. You have got to go and speak to some professionals, starting with your accountant. Your accountant needs to run the numbers for you, go through all the buying costs, go through all the potential tax deductions, and how it's going to potentially impact your cash flow. That is essential before you make any major decisions. You also need to be in contact with a mortgage broker, ensuring that you have a pre-approval in place for the loan, so that if you do proceed ahead and buy this property, it's a smooth transaction and there's no issues with time being wasted. Of course, I'm going to recommend that you go and speak to a financial planner, or you go and find one if you don't have one right now. It is so important that you understand how this potential decision to buy this property is actually going to fit in your financial situation. Is it going to help improve your financial well-being, or is it going to actually hinder? A financial planner will throw all sorts of questions and ask you, what if this happens? What if that happens? What are your goals? What are your deadlines? What are the other assets you have? These are all things that you've got to be considering, particularly your risk profile and the deadline for your goals. Another person that you need to be speaking with and consulting with is actually a real estate agent. I know that you've mentioned your sister-in-law is selling this property for $1 million. Now, I don't know whether she's giving you a discount or not, but you need to get a really good feel as to whether or not that is actually a fair price, that is market price. Speaking to a real estate agent and asking them what they think, they'll be able to give you some honest feedback, whether that's a good buy, whether that's reasonably priced, and of course, that 3% estimated rental yield, how accurate is that? Or is there potentially room to be able to put that rent up? And what sort of people are renting it? Are they staying in that property long term, or is it potentially a high turnover area? Because these are things that really do impact and potentially damage your cash flow when it comes to a property. So you really want to ask lots of questions, pick everyone's brains. And there are no dumb questions, only the questions that are not asked. So you must speak with those 4 people immediately. The next thing you need to do is invest time thinking about your own financial goals here. And does this potential property purchase align with your goals? I would be thinking about what the goals are for you. What does financial well-being look like? For example, is your goal to build up a certain amount of passive income per annum? And how does this help? For example, you might have a goal to build up a passive income of $100,000 a year. Now, this potential property purchase may actually help you because it's more passive income. And, this may be something that gives you another foot in the door and adds greater diversification to your investment portfolio and helps add other value in your financial journey ahead. But there might be other things that you think about that are your goals. For example, you might have a goal to actually be buying a family home for yourself. So buying this property, how does that impact that goal to buy a home? Does that reduce your serviceability? Does that reduce your ability to actually borrow? Will you be geared up to the eyeballs and you won't be able to apply for a new loan for another couple of years, or it may wipe your deposit out completely for a new home and you have to start all over again? These are all things that you need to think about. Or perhaps your goals are actually focused around retirement. You're approaching retirement, you're trying to beef up your superannuation. How does this property purchase impact your ability to contribute to super or to structure assets in a way that are tax effective, that are going to be complementary to your retirement goals? Really spend time thinking about what your goals are, both in the short term, medium term, and long term. Think about diversification. What is your risk profile? And what other assets, that is financial assets that you already own, that you want to maybe change, shift, or build upon? Spend time doing this. And I'm going to assume from your message that you have a partner. This is the conversations that you need to be having together. Take your time, turn off all the distractions around you, and go deep with this so that you feel like you've got a great understanding as to what is important to you and where your financial values sit, because that will help you see whether this is right for you or not. The next thing I would be considering is, what is your time frame? Property is a long-term investment, 10 years if not longer. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, to buy property is expensive. You've got legal expenses, you've got things like stamp duty, which are incredibly expensive, especially on $1 million property. And as you know, property is not liquid. unlike your share portfolio that you already own. You can't just go and sell $50,000 of that property like you can with your share portfolio. You have to sell the whole entire property if you need cash. And then, of course, that triggers capital gains tax and all those other selling expenses such as agents' commissions and all the legal fees. The other thing I'd be thinking about from a time frame point of view is that diversification. You need to think about the fact that one property is not considered diversification. All your money or the bulk of your money is potentially tied up in that one property, in that one apartment block or that one street or that one suburb, in that one area, in that one state. Now, I don't know what other assets you may own, and you actually may have 7, 8, 9, 10 different properties. So this could actually add diversification. But if not, you need to be aware of that diversification risk if you don't own other property. The next thing I would then consider is how is this going to impact your cash flow, both today and in the future? And this is something to me sort of stood out like a red flag in reading your DM. You've mentioned that you're in the situation where you can service the cash flow negative impact. That is, you can service the cost between the rent you receive and the interest repayments. Now, when you speak to a mortgage broker, they'll give you great advice as to what is the best way to set this loan up, whether it's principal and interest or interest only. But my question to you, and I'm going to be, play devil's advocate here, is can you afford this into the future, particularly if your situation changes? You've mentioned in your DM that you can service the difference between the rent and the interest today. But what if you're planning on having a family in a couple of years and you'll be going down to one income? Will you be able to still afford to hold this property? What happens if you go in between tenants and the property is empty for, say, a couple of weeks or even a month? Do you have sufficient money to be able to continue on servicing that gap? What if rents go down? Can you still afford to service that? What if interest rates go up? Do you still have the cash flow to be able to continue on holding this? Throw as many what ifs to make sure that you are financially bulletproof when it comes to looking at your cash flow. Remember, property is a long-term investment, so that cash flow needs to be able to work for you long-term.
2 words, Revo Fitness. Here's a few more. Simple, 24/7, Reformer Pilates, body scanners, massage chairs, squat racks, free weights, pin and plate loaded equipment, no lock-in contracts, no bullshit. All of that and more from just $9.69 a week. That's surprisingly affordable. Join now at Revo Fitness Blair Athol or download the Revo Fitness app. RevoFitness.com.au or find the Revo Fitness app in the App Store.
As well. The next thing that I would think about is protection, wealth protection. First of all, do you need to reassess your emergency money if you do go ahead and purchase this? There are lots of costs of holding a property. You've got strata if it's an apartment, you've got council rates, you've got water. You might even have land tax if you own other property. So maybe you need to increase your emergency money to cover any costs, in particular things like special strata levies. And then, of course, do you need to assess your personal insurances? I'm assuming you're taking on debt to buy this property as you've disclosed in your DM. Does that mean you need to go back and look at how much life cover you've got, or how much income protection or trauma cover or TPD cover you've got? And if you do need to increase this to help cover the new loan and financial responsibilities that you're taking on, how's that going to impact the premiums? And are you in a situation where you can increase your existing cover without any risk of the premiums increasing that's going to impact your cash flow, or you've had potentially a change in health where you won't be able to actually increase your level of cover? Leave no stone unturned. You need to consider absolutely everything. And then, of course, you've got to consider what insurances you need for this property, such as landlord insurance. And then finally, I want you to think about this property and take a big step back and look at the big picture. I want you to ask yourself this question. If this opportunity to buy your sister-in-law's property hadn't come up, would you still want to actually buy that property that she's selling? If your answer is no, I think that's a really big indication that this may not necessarily be the right property for you right now. If your answer is yes, well then that might give you a great sign that you do need to proceed ahead with continuing on doing your research, speaking to the professionals, picking their brains, and going deeper and working out whether this is the right decision for you and your financial goals and your long-term financial well-being. The other things I would recommend you think about is, how do you know that your mum will actually be okay living in that property? Does she actually want to live in that property? Do you have confirmation from her? Have you had a conversation with her to say, look, Mum, we're thinking of buying this property off our sister-in-law, and we were thinking that hopefully maybe one day, to help you, you might like to live in this property. Is that something that you'd actually like? Now, everybody is different. Some people are, particularly retirees, might be fiercely independent and don't want to accept help. And of course, we need to respect that. Your mother may turn around and say, yes, I would absolutely love that. It would take a huge financial stress off in my life, and that's wonderful. But she may actually say, you know what, I really like that property, but it's probably not right for me. I need a home that I can live in and retire in that's maybe a ground floor apartment, or a home that doesn't have stairs, or something that's low maintenance for me, or a home that's actually in an area that's closer to hospitals or closer to where my community or my friends are. Make sure you have that conversation with her so that you know that this actually is in alignment to what your non-financial goals are, which is obviously to help support your mother back. And then I would be asking the questions as, okay, how's this going to work financially? I think it's so admirable that you want to help your mum out and give her a safe home to be able to live in. However, what will that look like financially? I know you've said that you can afford the gap in the rent and the mortgage repayments right now, but what will your mother be able to afford to contribute? Perhaps you're going to have to take on the whole entire mortgage repayment if she's not in a position where she can afford to contribute towards the cost of this property. Now, you might be able to afford it now, but what if your situation changes? You may have children, or you may have children already, you might have more children, or you might be looking at your own retirement goals where you want to look at working part-time. You need to ask these questions and get a really clear picture as to what this is going to look like both immediately, medium term, and long term. And throw some what-if situations. Play devil's advocate just like I've done right now. And when in doubt, hold off. That doesn't mean don't proceed ahead and buy it. It means continue on researching. Continue on going deep, picking people's brains, asking the right questions, doing your research. This may lead you to another property. You may realize, actually, this is what we do want to do. Buy a property, but this particular property isn't actually the right one for us, or this particular property is right for us, but the timing isn't right. By going through and considering all of these things, it will help you get started in making the right decision for yourself and for your partner, so that you are always upholding your financial well-being, your financial goals, but also the value system behind how you want to help support your family, help back your family, and look at the big picture so that you're always in a position where you can afford to help other people around you. So thank you so much for sending me this DM and asking these questions. I'm absolutely honored that you've asked me to help you dissect, analyze, and critique this massive financial decision. Never feel pressured or rushed. If it's meant to be, you will know when it's right because you've considered absolutely everything. And again, a reminder, always go and get personal advice from a financial planner. Speak with your accountant, get a great mortgage broker that can help you and run all the numbers with you, particularly if interest rates change. And of course, give a couple of real estate agents in that area a few phone calls. You'll get a much greater understanding as to what the true value of the property is, as well as the potential long-term value and how it's going to work for your financial goals and dreams. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to today's Start Here episode. If you would like me to help you get started, please send me a DM on Instagram at SugarMamaTV or at Canna Campbell Official. And as mentioned, I will come back to you as quickly as possible so that you can quickly get started. All right, everyone. I'll see you next Monday morning. Ciao for now.
Two words, Revo Fitness. Here's a few more. Simple, 24/7, Reformer Pilates, body scanners, massage chairs, squat racks, free weights, pin and plate loaded equipment, no lock-in contracts, no bullshit. All of that and more from just $9.69 a week. That's surprisingly affordable. Join now at Revo Fitness Blair Athol or download the Revo Fitness app. RevoFitness.com.au or find the Revo Fitness app in the App Store.